All right, today we are diving into a really powerful mental model for anyone building something new, whether you're in a startup or a big company. And it's an idea that kind of flips conventional wisdom on its head. It's all about this. The right order of doing things is way more important than just raw speed.
So let's start with a little story, a parable, really, about building ships. It gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. This quote from Thomas Troward nails it. We didn't figure out how things float by studying all the things that sank. We figured it out by looking at what did float and then asking why. For centuries, we built boats out of wood. Why? Well, because wood floats. Simple observation. But that's all it was, observation without any real understanding. But then something shifted. We stopped just watching and started asking why. We actually dug into the physics of buoyancy and displacement, and suddenly we could do what seemed impossible. We could build these massive, incredible ships out of steel, a material that by itself sinks like a rock.
And that shift, from just watching what works to really understanding the laws that govern why it works, that's everything. It's the move from just looking at things to understanding the physics behind them. And the philosopher Francis Bacon summed this up perfectly.
This one sentence. Honestly, this is the entire idea behind the framework we're exploring today. It's not about trying to fight the market or pretend constraints don't exist. No, it's about understanding the physics of your business so deeply that you can actually use those forces to build something that seems to defy gravity. And this really highlights the two different ways of thinking about building, well, anything really. On the left, you've got the wood boat approach. You're relying on gut feeling, maybe copying what someone else did, and just kind of hoping you get lucky. But on the right, you have the steel ship method. This is engineering. It's based on principles. Success isn't an accident here. It's achieved by design, because you took the time to understand the forces at play.
Okay, so what happens when we don't do that? What happens when we try to build a steel ship using wood boat logic? Well, we start to see these really familiar patterns of failure. Let's call them symptoms of a sinking ship. And I bet some of these are going to sound familiar.
Oh yeah, you've seen this one before. A company just takes off, right? Explosive growth, everyone's talking about them. But the foundations, they're just not there, and the whole thing implodes under its own weight.
This one is just painful. The tech was perfect. The pilot project, a huge success. The client absolutely loved the final presentation, and then crickets. The whole thing just withers and dies, and nobody can figure out why. Or how about this one? A company spends millions on brilliant data scientists, cutting-edge AI models. The tech is truly incredible. But after a year or two, the whole initiative gets quietly shut down because it never delivered a single dollar of actual measurable business value. So what's the deal here? Are these all just separate, unlucky events? Nope, not at all. They are all symptoms of the exact same hidden disease. And that disease? It has a name. It's called downstream gravity. This right here, this is the core of the problem. As humans, we are all naturally pulled towards the activity that feels productive. Building the product, hiring a team, launching that marketing campaign. It feels like we're making progress. But it's like building the cool-looking smokestacks and decks of your ship before you've even figured out if the hull will float. And you can see the two kinds of work here pretty clearly. On the left, you have that upstream work, the buoyancy calculation. It's the slow, hard, sometimes invisible thinking about the problem and your customer. It's what makes sure you float. And then on the right, you have the downstream activity. That's the ship itself. It's the exciting stuff everyone sees and gets hyped about. The fatal mistake is jumping to the column on the right before you've absolutely locked down the column on the left. So, how in the world do we fight this pull? I mean, it's called gravity for a reason. It's a powerful force. Well, we need a map that forces us to work in the right sequence to make sure every single step is built on a rock-solid foundation. And that's exactly what this framework is for. It is not a to-do list, it's a dependency map. Seriously, the best way to think about it is like a multi-stage rocket. Each stage has to fire in the right order. If you fire stage 2 before stage 1, the whole thing gets destroyed right there on the launch pad. So here are the 5 layers, and you absolutely cannot skip ahead. It all starts at layer 0, the foundations. You have to ask, with brutal honesty, is this problem even worth solving? If, and only if, the answer is yes, then you earn the right to move to layer 1, market clarity. Who are you selling to and why on earth would they pick you? Once you have evidence for that, you can go to layer 2 and validate it in the real world. If that works, you start building the layer 3 commercial engine to see if you can generate demand again and again. And only then do you get to layer 4, getting ready to scale.
Trying to hire a sales team before you have market clarity, that's not acceleration, my friend. That's an explosion.
Now, when you actually follow this sequence, you avoid one of the most common traps in growing a company, and it's called the heroics trap.
This is exactly what happens when you give in to that downstream gravity and you skip those crucial upstream layers. The only way you can possibly get results, like making a sale, is through one person's, often the founder's, sheer force of will. Why? Because there's no system, no validated value prop, nothing to support the work. It all relies on them. And the difference here is just stark. A hero's performance is tied to one person, it's improvised, it's all in their head, and you can't scale it. A system, though? A system is documented, it's teachable, and it's repeatable. You can build a real organization on a system. You just can't build one on a hero.
Which brings us right back to where we started, our parable of the steel ship.
Look, this is the most important takeaway from all of this. Just because your company is growing, that does not mean you have a repeatable engine. It might just mean you have a very, very capable hero. Maybe that's you working 80 hours a week, papering over all the cracks in the foundation. And that's not a scalable business. That's a burnout story waiting to happen.
And that's really the question this whole framework forces you to answer. Are you going to do the hard, slow, upstream work to understand the physics of your market first and ensure your success is by design? Or are you going to jump straight into building and discover those laws the hard way when you're already in the water? The choice is yours. Thanks for joining us.